I am Mason, 65 years old, retired, living in a small house in the suburbs of Chicago. This house, with its faded walls and creaking wooden floors, was once the warm home of me and Martha, my wife. 5 years ago, she left me forever due to a cruel cancer. Since then, I've lived alone, quietly, surrounded by old mementos and days that pass slowly like the river out there. But I am not lonely. I have Janet, my 30-year-old daughter, the only joy left in my life. Janet is my light. From when she was little, she had a radiant smile and sparkling eyes like Martha's. I still remember the long nights holding her to sleep when she had a high fever or was scared of a storm. I remember the extra shifts at the factory, sweat soaking my back, just to buy her a new school bag or the shoes she liked. Though life was never easy, I never felt it was a burden. For Janet, everything was worth it. That day, as usual, I opened Facebook on my old phone. I'm not tech-savvy, but Janet taught me how to scroll through the photos she posted. Each of her pictures brought me a small burst of joy. That day, I saw her posing with a man, both smiling brightly next to a sparkling ring. The status read, "We're engaged. The wedding will take place next month." My heart leaped. My little girl was getting married. I imagined myself in my old suit, standing by her side, holding her hand as she walked down the aisle. I smiled, my heart strangely warm. In the days that followed, I waited. Surely Janet would call, tell me about the wedding plans, the groom, everything. But the phone stayed silent. I thought maybe she was busy. A wedding is a big event with so much to arrange. I wasn't angry. I knew my girl loved me. She just forgot for a moment. I told myself she'd call soon. I waited patiently, as I had waited my whole life. Janet kept posting on Facebook, pictures of wedding dresses, fresh flowers, and the venue, a luxurious banquet hall in downtown Chicago. I read every status, my heart eager. "October 15th will officially become husband and wife," she wrote. I memorized that date as if it were my own birthday. I took out my old suit, ironed every wrinkle, though it was worn at the shoulders and a bit tight. I wanted to look presentable for my daughter's big day. But the invitation never came. I waited until the last day, still hoping for a text, a call, or even a card sent through the mail. Nothing. My heart began to feel heavy. Had Janet truly forgotten? Or did she think I'd just know to come? I tried to push away the unease. "It's okay, Mason," I told myself. "She's busy. You're her father. You have to be there for this day no matter what." On October 15th, I woke up early. I shaved, combed my hair, put on the suit, and tied the green tie Martha had once picked out for me. I looked at myself in the mirror, a weathered man with deep wrinkles and white hair. But in my eyes, today I was the proudest father in the world. I picked up a small bouquet of white daisies, Janet's favorite flower since she was a child, and drove my old pickup truck to the banquet hall. The banquet hall was as grand as a palace, bright lights, flowers lining the paths, and expensive cars filling the lot. I walked in, my heart pounding. The security guard at the entrance asked for my invitation. I smiled and explained, "I'm Mason, the bride's father. My daughter probably forgot to send me the invite." He looked at me skeptically, then checked the list on his tablet. My heart thumped. I waited, hoping my name would appear. "There's no Mason on the list, sir," he said, his voice cold. "Are you sure you're at the right place?" I froze. "No Mason? How could that be? I'm Janet's father. I raised her for 30 years, sacrificed my whole life for her." I tried to stay calm, my voice trembling. "There must be a mistake. I'm the bride's father, Janet. Please check again." He shook his head, looking at me as if I were a stranger. "No mistake. If you don't have an invitation, I can't let you in." The blood in my veins seemed to turn to ice. My face burned, not from anger, but from the pain swelling in my chest. I wanted to shout, to tell the world I was the bride's father, that I belonged here. But I didn't. I just stood there, watching strangers pass by, laughing and talking happily. The bouquet of white daisies in my hand began to wilt, like my heart at that moment. The cheerful music from inside mixed with the crowd's laughter, but it only made me feel more out of place. The guard kept watching me, his gaze cold, as if I didn't belong. I wanted to scream, to run inside and hug Janet, to ask why she forgot me, the father who gave his life for her. But I couldn't. My feet felt rooted to the ground, and I stood there, lost in thought, as emotions crashed over me like breaking waves. I thought of Janet, the little girl I held from the moment she was born. I remembered the sleepless nights when she had a fever, sitting by her bed, wiping sweat from her forehead, praying the fever would break. I remembered the extra shifts at the factory, my back aching just to buy her a new dress for the school dance. Every sacrifice, every drop of sweat was for her. And now, here I stood, barred from my daughter's wedding day. My heart ached, but I still told myself, she didn't mean it. She still loves you, Mason. Then I thought of the wedding gift I'd prepared. It wasn't just a gift, it was my entire life, my love for Janet wrapped up in it. The small house in the Chicago suburbs where Martha and I built our family, worth $300,000. Every brick, every window frame was steeped in memories. I remembered mornings with Martha cooking in the kitchen, Janet running around the table laughing brightly. I remembered cold winter nights, the three of us huddled by the fireplace, telling stories and dreaming of the future. That house was all I had, and I wanted to give it to Janet and her husband so they could start their new life without worry. Beyond the house, there was Martha's life insurance money, a significant sum I'd saved, never touching, just for this day. I wanted Janet and her husband to have a solid start, not to struggle as Martha and I had. I'd planned it long ago. After giving the gift, I'd move to my brother's small town, live in a simple house with a small garden, and spend my days in peace. That was all I needed. I kept nothing for myself because Janet's happiness was enough. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, trying to push away the pain crushing my chest. Then I thought of Martha's memory chest. Before she passed, she held my hand, her voice weak but firm. Mason, open the memory chest before Janet's wedding day, not a moment sooner. I didn't understand why, but I promised her. The old wooden chest sat in the corner of the bedroom, locked, holding the things Martha cherished. I hadn't touched it until last night when I opened it. Inside was a miniature wedding dress she'd sewn for Janet and a letter carefully stored in a small metal box. In that letter, Martha confessed a secret about Janet, a truth she had kept hidden from me for the past 30 years. Suddenly, the honk of a car horn snapped me back to reality. The car door opened, and I recognized Clara, Martha's sister, along with her husband Tom and their 2 children. Clara, with her curly dyed blonde hair and warm smile, spotted me immediately. "Mason," she called, her voice full of surprise. "What are you doing out here? Why aren't you inside?" I pressed my lips together, trying to keep my voice steady. "They wouldn't let me in, Clara. My name, it's not on the list." Clara froze, her eyes flashing with shock, then quickly turning to anger. "What? Not on the list? But you're Janet's father." Without hesitation, she marched toward the security guard, her voice sharp and brimming with indignation. "You there? This is my brother-in-law, the bride's father. How is his name not on the list? What kind of checking are you people doing?" After a tense argument, the guard reluctantly stepped aside, allowing me to enter the ceremony. I followed Clara, my heart heavy. The wedding hall was breathtaking, with sparkling crystal chandeliers and flowers lining every path. Guests in elegant dresses and suits chatted animatedly. I felt out of place, like an intruder in this world. I searched for Janet, my eyes scanning the crowd. Finally, I saw her, radiant in a white wedding gown, standing next to a tall man, surely the groom. They were laughing and talking with a group of friends, looking as happy as they did in the Facebook photos. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, and walked toward her. "Janet," my voice trembled, lost in the sophisticated music. I wants to talk to you." She turned around, Her eyes swept over me like they were brushing past an unexpected stain on a silk carpet. A fleeting moment of unease, then quickly turning cold and sharp as a blade. Janet strode toward me, her red lips pressed tight, her gaze wary as if I were a beggar who'd wandered into high society. "Dad? What are you doing here?" Her voice was high-pitched, icy and sharp, like the sound of a crystal glass struck with metal. I forced a crooked smile, my heart twisting. "I just wanted to know. Why wasn't my name on the guest list? After all, I'm your father, Janet." She rolled her eyes, letting out a sigh of exasperation, as if speaking to me was torture. "Oh, for heaven's sake, Dad, I forgot. There were so many important people to take care of. Did you think you're someone who can make a scene about this?" She abruptly stopped, her eyes scanning my worn-out suit from head to toe, then wrinkling her brow in mockery. "And look at yourself. Dressed like that and you still managed to get in here? This is a wedding, not a bus station. Don't you see how out of place you are?" Her words cut through me like a knife, leaving wounds that could never heal. I stood frozen, the bouquet in my hands trembling, petals falling scattered onto the polished wooden floor. "Janet, I don't need fancy things. I just wanted to be here for you." She tilted her chin up, her eyes as cold as ice. Her voice dropped low, but each word hissed through her teeth, sharp as needles. "Listen, Dad. If anyone asks, don't you dare say you're my father. I don't want to be humiliated because of my lowly background. Got it?" Before I could respond, she turned on her heel, her white gown sweeping past like a cold gust of wind, leaving me stranded in a sea of strangers. I backed away slowly toward a corner of the hall, where the crystal chandelier's light didn't bother to reach. Pain clawed at my chest like a pack of wild beasts tearing into an exhausted prey. My entire life I had sacrificed for this child. I raised her, scrimped, and saved every penny to give her an education, to make her who she is, and today she treated me like filth not worth acknowledging. I slumped into a chair tucked behind a large pillar, my head bowed, my old shoulders trembling violently. But as if to mock my pain further, David, the polished groom, a man I'd never met, sauntered by. His eyes flicked toward me, disdainful and superior. He smacked his lips in disgust, then casually barked, "Hey, old man! What are you still standing there for? Go get more wine for the guests, hurry up." I looked up, my throat dry, my voice hoarse. I'm not a waiter. I'm Mason, Janet's father." David paused for a moment, then let out a scornful laugh, the sound like a slap to the last shred of my dignity. "You? Janet's father? Stop making things up, old man. You think I'd believe that? We planned this carefully and deliberately didn't invite you. Don't even dream of worming your way into this world. Poor trash like you only drags down the value of this place. Why are you still shamelessly showing up here?" His words hit me like a bucket of ice water to the face. My blood boiled, my hands clenching so tightly the veins bulged. But before I could retort, another man, likely a business associate of his, approached, glancing at me with utter contempt. "David, who's this old guy? Why are people like him loitering at a classy wedding like this?" David smirked, clapping the man on the shoulder with camaraderie. "Don't worry about it, just some old waiter who's out of place. Come on, let me tell you about that billion-dollar investment deal coming up." And they turned away, their mocking laughter echoing behind them. I sat there, my heart ready to burst. I looked at those strangers, at my daughter, now more distant than anyone in the world. And a fire ignited in my chest. No, I wouldn't bow my head. No one had the right to trample on my dignity and love like this. I stood up abruptly, straightening my jacket, my eyes dry and resolute. I marched toward the ceremony stage where Janet and David were arrogantly raising their glasses in a toast. If they wanted to bury the truth, then I would be the one to expose it right here at this lavish wedding. After a surge of anger, I gradually regained my composure and the resilience of a 65-year-old man who had weathered life's storms. Janet, my daughter, had called me a disgrace. David, my son-in-law, had treated me like an old waiter. They had trampled on my love and sacrifices as if I were nothing in their lives. I took a deep breath, my hands clenching tightly. I stepped out from the shadowed corner, moving through the crowd, my gaze unwavering. The soft music continued to play, and the bride and groom stood on the stage preparing to cut the wedding cake. The guests clapped and chatted, oblivious to me, a forgotten father. I stopped in front of the stage, looking up at Janet. She turned, a flicker of panic crossing her face when she saw me. "Dad, what are you doing?" she whispered, her voice trembling. I didn't answer. I stepped onto the stage, raising my hand to request the microphone from the MC. He looked surprised, but I met his gaze with determination. "Let me say a few words," I said, my voice hoarse but firm. He hesitated, then handed me the microphone. The hall gradually fell silent, hundreds of eyes turning toward me. I felt my heart pounding, but I wasn't afraid. This was the moment to reclaim myself. "I am Mason," I began, my voice shaky but clear. "I am Janet's father, the bride today." A murmur rippled through the crowd. I saw Janet lower her head, her face flushed, while David frowned, his eyes cold and sharp. I didn't care. I continued. "I raised Janet for 30 years. I did everything to give her a good life. The sleepless nights when she was sick, the grueling extra shifts to buy her books, the dreams I set aside for her, all of it, I have no regrets." I paused, taking a breath, feeling as if my chest were being crushed. "My wife, Martha, and I sacrificed our lives for Janet. Martha passed away 5 years ago, but her love remains here in me, in the home we built. I came here today not to shame my daughter, but to bless her. Yet I wasn't invited, my name wasn't on the guest list. She said I was lowly, that I didn't belong in this place." The murmurs in the crowd grew louder. Some people covered their mouths, their eyes wide. I saw Clara standing in a far corner, her eyes red, clutching her husband's hand. I looked straight at Janet, my voice hardening. "Janet, you told me not to admit I'm your father. You said I'd embarrass you. But you know what? I've never been ashamed of you. I only feel pain because you've forgotten who I am." I paused, summoning the courage to say what came next. "Last night, following your mother's final wish, I opened her memory chest. Inside was a letter. Martha wrote that, 'You are not my biological daughter.'" The hall erupted in whispers like a crashing wave. Janet's head snapped up, her face pale as a ghost. David gripped her hand, his eyes frantic. I continued, my voice trembling but resolute. "Your mother secretly underwent artificial insemination to conceive you without telling me. When I learned the truth, I was shocked, but I didn't blame her. And you, Janet, though we don't share blood, you are still my daughter. I love you, not for who you are, but because you are mine and Martha's. I had planned to give you and your groom the house worth $300,000 where your mother and I built our family. Beyond that, I was going to give you both the money from your mother's life insurance sitting in the bank, about $500,000. I wanted you to have a better start. After that, I would move to the countryside, live a simple life because I thought your happiness was enough. But today, you and your husband called me a lowly father, pretended not to know me. You trampled on my love." I stopped, tears finally spilling down my cheeks. "I don't hate you, but I won't let my love be disrespected anymore. I'm keeping everything, the house, the money, and my heart. I will live for myself, no longer a shadow of anyone else." I set the microphone down and stepped off the stage, leaving the hall in stunned silence. Janet called after me, her voice choked, "Dad!" But I didn't turn back. I walked out of the banquet hall, leaving the wilted bouquet on the floor, leaving the shocked gazes and whispers behind. I had said everything, bared my soul, and now I felt lighter, as if I had shed a burden that had weighed on my shoulders for 30 years. I stepped out of the banquet hall, the Chicago sky dark and heavy with clouds as if poised to unleash a downpour. A cold wind blew past, but I didn't shiver. Inside me, the fire had burned out, leaving a frigid void. I didn't cry anymore. My tears had run dry, leaving only a dull, lingering pain like a scar that would never heal. I had spoken the truth, but it didn't bring me joy. It only made me realize that my love, no matter how vast, could not change Janet's heart. I drove home, the familiar road now feeling alien. The small house emerged in the darkness, silent like an old friend. I stepped inside and sank into Martha's armchair, where she used to sit knitting sweaters for Janet. The memory chest still lay open, Martha's letter resting on the table. I picked it up, my fingers tracing the trembling handwriting. Mason, if you're reading this, you'll know the truth about Janet. You have every right to be angry with me, but please keep loving her. She is our gift. I folded the letter, tears silently falling. I wasn't angry with Martha. I was angry with myself for sacrificing so much for a daughter who didn't need me. In the days that followed, I lived like a shadow. I didn't turn on the TV, didn't touch my phone, didn't want to know what the outside world thought of my speech. But Clara called, her voice choked with emotion. Mason, people are criticizing Janet and David. They're saying they're ungrateful, that they don't deserve you. I nodded silently, though she couldn't see. Thank you, Clara, I said, then hung up. I didn't want to hear more. I didn't want to know if Janet regretted her actions. For me, it was over. A week later, the doorbell rang. I opened the door to find Janet standing there, her eyes red and swollen, dressed simply, no longer the haughty bride from that day. David stood behind her, head bowed, hands in his pockets. Dad, Janet said, her voice trembling. I'm sorry, I was wrong. I didn't realize how much you sacrificed. Please forgive me. I looked at her, searching for the little girl who used to hug me, who called me Dad with a radiant smile, but all I saw was a stranger. David spoke up, his voice awkward. We didn't mean it, sir. We just wanted a perfect wedding. Could you reconsider the house? His words were the final knife. I smiled, but it was a cold, hollow smile. You're not apologizing for hurting me, I said, my voice calm. You're apologizing because you want the house, the money, but I gave you a chance. I gave you my whole heart and you trampled on it. Now I have nothing left to give. Janet burst into tears, dropping to her knees, grasping my hand. Dad, I'm begging you, I don't want to lose you. But her hand was cold, devoid of the warmth from years past. I gently pulled my hand away, looking at her one last time. Janet, I lost you a long time ago. Live your life. Don't contact me again. I closed the door, leaving her sobs outside. I sat down, listening to the sound of their car driving away. I didn't feel relieved, only empty. In the days that followed, I began packing up the house. Each item, each memento stirred memories of Martha, of Janet, of the happy days now gone. I kept nothing. I contacted a charity for underprivileged children and donated most of my assets, including Martha's life insurance money. The house I handed over to a realtor to sell. I didn't need it anymore. It was no longer a home. I decided to leave Chicago. I packed a few clothes, some old books, and drove to the countryside where my brother was waiting. As the car rolled forward, I glanced at the city in the rearview mirror, feeling as if I were leaving an entire lifetime behind. But I had no regrets. I had sacrificed enough. Now it was time to live for myself. I drove my old pickup truck out of Chicago on a clear, sunny day. The towering skyscrapers, the bustling streets, and the small house where I once lived with Martha and Janet were now just memories. I didn't look back. In my heart, I carried a cold void, but also a hint of relief, as if I had finally shed a burden that had weighed on my shoulders for 30 years. I had said everything, let go of everything, and now I only wanted to find a place to start anew. The small town where my brother Henry lived was hundreds of miles from Chicago. It was the place where I grew up, where endless fields stretched out and dirt roads led to simple wooden houses. As my truck rolled past the town's welcome sign, I took a deep breath. The smell of hay, the scent of damp earth after rain drifted through, stirring childhood memories. I had left this place to build a life in the city, but now I returned, not to escape, but to find myself again. Henry greeted me on the porch, his kind smile creasing his weathered face. "Welcome home, Mason," he said, clapping me on the shoulder. His house was small, with faded shingles, but warm. In the kitchen, the smell of freshly baked bread wafted through, and I found myself smiling. For the first time in weeks, I felt a touch of peace. Those first days in the town felt strange. I was used to Chicago's frenetic pace, the constant honking of cars and lights that never dimmed. Here, time seemed to slow. In the mornings, I woke as the sun rose, joining Henry to tend the garden behind the house. I learned to sow seeds, water plants, and pull weeds. Tasks I hadn't done since I was young. With each swing of the hoe, each drop of sweat that fell to the earth, I felt as if I were washing away old pains. Henry didn't ask much about what happened in Chicago. He knew I needed time. But one evening, as we sat on the porch sipping bitter coffee, he spoke up. "Mason, you did the right thing. You deserve to live for yourself." I nodded, gazing at the star-filled sky. His words were simple but touched my heart. I had sacrificed for too long, lived as a shadow of Janet, of Martha, of expectations that never came to fruition. Now, I wanted to live for me. I began finding joy in small things. I loved sitting by the creek, listening to the gentle gurgle of water, letting my mind drift with the current. I enjoyed chatting with the elderly neighbor, Mrs. Mary, who always brought a basket of fresh apples and shared stories about the town. I cherished morning walks through the fields, feeling the early sun warm on my skin. Those moments, though simple, made me feel alive, truly alive, for the first time in years. But not every day was easy. Some nights, when darkness blanketed the house, memories of Janet resurfaced. I remembered her smile, the way she hugged me as a child, calling me Dad with absolute trust. I wondered if I had done something wrong, if I could have changed things to keep her from turning her back on me. But then I reminded myself, I gave her everything and she chose how to treat me. I couldn't change the past, but I could choose my future. I no longer contacted Janet. She sent a few texts, made a few calls, but I didn't respond. Not because I hated her, I didn't. I just didn't want to return to that cycle of pain. I had closed the door to the past and I wanted it to stay shut forever. Clara, Martha's sister, called occasionally, updating me on her life and family. She said Janet and David were unhappy, that they faced harsh criticism after the wedding. Their careers suffered, especially David's. His business partners turned away when they learned he was ungrateful and selfish. I listened, but said nothing. I didn't want to know. I just wanted to forget. One day I decided to do one final thing to close the past. I took the remaining money from selling the house and Martha's life insurance and established a charity fund for poor children in the town. I named it the Martha Fund, in memory of the wife who gave me the world, even if she kept the secret about Janet. When I handed the money to the fund's manager, a middle-aged woman with a kind smile, she took my hand. "You're a good man, Mr. Mason. The children will be grateful for you." I smiled, feeling as if a heavy stone had been lifted from my chest. I didn't do it for fame or recognition. I did it because it was what Martha would have wanted, and because I wanted those children to have the opportunities Janet had. In the afternoons, I often sat by the creek, an old notebook in hand. I began writing, not to send to anyone, but to capture my thoughts. I wrote about Martha, our love, the secret she kept, and how I chose to love Janet despite the truth. I wrote about Janet, the happy days and the pain she left behind. But above all, I wrote about me, about my journey to stand up, to stop letting my kindness be exploited. I thought about the years I lived as a shadow. I had sacrificed everything for Janet, believing a father's love meant unconditional giving. But I was wrong. Love isn't blind sacrifice. Love must be reciprocated, must be valued. I had forgotten my own worth, forgotten that I deserved to be loved, to be seen, not just by others, but by myself. I looked at the creek flowing before me, its water sparkling in the afternoon sun. I remembered my speech at the wedding, how I stood on that stage bearing the truth though my heart was breaking. That was the first time I stood up for myself, the first time I chose me over others. That moment wasn't just a confession, it was liberation. I had broken the chains of expectations of pain to become a free man. I closed my eyes, feeling freedom for the first time in my life. The breeze swept through, carrying the scent of earth and grass, so refreshing. I was no longer the forgotten father, no longer the husband living in the shadow of the past. I was Mason, a man learning to love himself. And the message I want to share, not just for myself, but for anyone who has sacrificed too much. Love yourself. Don't let your kindness be exploited. Live a life where you are the protagonist, not someone in the background.